the BYU email chain, as well as on the class community thing on Google Plus. So teacher can look at it if they want to, or whatever else.
Sounds good.
All right, so I'll pull this up here. All right, so the first part of the case is to identify the main reasons why the varsity team was losing to the JV team. You guys want to just kind of go around and put your 2 cents in as far as why you thought they were losing?
I can start. My 2 cents was they were losing because they had no team unity. It seemed like the JV was better because, I mean, they had nothing to lose. And it goes with their model. And the varsity was too focused on winning rather than just working together. And that's why there was no unity. They were all just trying to win individually.
I agree.
Yeah, I just go off of that kind of that they were in it for themselves and not as a team. That's kind of what I got out of it.
Yeah, I thought the coach, he focused on the article. He talked a lot about how he focused on like the individual, like their strength, and then their physical fitness. And then I think he didn't resolve conflict early on enough with the varsity team, because he kept talking about how they kept getting slower and slower. It wasn't that the JV team was getting faster than them. The varsity was getting slower because they weren't working as a team, kind of what you guys have been saying. And then whenever they were critiquing each other, they would always just say, oh, it's completely your fault, and they would never really work anything out. They just want to fight about it.
Yeah, I also talked about their attitude, how the coxswain's head was down and shaking, and then the JV members were a lot more excited about their season than the varsity members.
Why do you think that the varsity team didn't get better as far as unity as the season went along?
Well, they were all at each other's throats the entire time. They were blaming each other, and when you blame each other, there's hard feelings, which causes disunity.
Okay.
The one other thing I was thinking is the coach never really, he's always kind of in transition, like, oh yeah, we may still switch around, we may switch some people off varsity on the JV, and he kept switching them around, so I don't know if that didn't give him time to set up unity, or that might have had an effect on it.
What do you guys, this is kind of just a little side thing as far as teams, because my daughter's on a club volleyball team, and my wife was kind of like asking me, well, would you want to be her coach? I'm like, probably not. Probably wouldn't be a great coach. But one of the things we got to talking about was how much motivation do you think there is, not necessarily the crew team or rowing, but just on any team, if you don't do well, there's the threat that you'll be replaced. Do you think that's an effective motivation? Because, I mean, that's kind of how it is with most team sports. I mean, if you, first off, to make the team, you have to, be better than some people.
I feel like it'd be different for every person.
Yeah.
I don't know, can't remember if it was in this class, but we had to read a talk by Elder Bednar, and he said the motivation came within. And so I think it just depends on the person and where they get their motivation from. But for some kids, maybe that is a big motivation for them, but I wouldn't say it would be effective for all kids.
Okay.
I guess
Do you
depending how
think a
bad they want
good,
it.
because I think a good coach can bring that motivation out. I guess if it just comes from within, I think a good coach can bring that out.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of coaching, is finding where each person on his team gets his motivation or her motivation from, and then seeking to get them more motivated.
Is motivation different for individual things? Let's say graduating school, because that's a real individual thing, versus a team, being motivated to work better together as a team.
I think I would have more of a motivation if I was in a team, because I'm not just letting myself down, I'm letting my whole team down. Whereas if it was just graduation, the only person I'm letting down is myself.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that too, that if you feel like you are part of a team, it's harder to let down a whole team rather than just let down yourself.
Yeah. Which makes it interesting for this rowing team, how they were just essentially letting each other down because nobody wanted to say like, oh, it was your fault. They really wanted to own up to saying, yeah, okay, I need to actually do this better.
Yeah, they didn't really have great leadership.
No. And
So-
like you said, that the coxswain just had his head down. He wasn't really leading the team at all.
Did it say how he chose the coxswain? I don't remember it really talking about that, but it seems like that's probably a pretty important part.
I don't remember it talking about that at all.
I can find my quote.
At the very, very bottom of the case study, it talks about, it doesn't say how he chose it, but it kind of gives the definition of the coxswain. The very last sentence, it says reports issues to the coach is appropriate, but also kind of almost like the assistant coach helps plan training and corrects rowing technique. So I don't know if the coxswain is really doing that at all, not really correcting anybody, saying, hey, maybe we need to work on this today. I don't know if he really reported anything to the coach. At least he didn't mention anything like that.
Okay, so the next question is, what should Coach P have done earlier in the season to resolve this problem? At exactly what point should he have intervened differently?
Well, I think when he had like his team meeting at the end where all the varsity got together and they kind of talked and got mad at each other. I think that should have happened a lot sooner when he realized there was a problem. And I think if they would have had better communication and been all on the same page and weren't all mad at each other and hating on each other, it would have been better.
What about his training methods? What were his training methods throughout the season?
Didn't he put them against each other? Like had them race JV versus varsity? Or each other individually?
Yeah, he did that. But what did they do most of the time during the winter and the spring?
Sounds like them they're just in the gym a lot of the time.
Yeah, he brought in the football
Weightlifting.
Oh, yeah.
team strength and conditioning coach.
So you think maybe like it would be good to bring in some kind of team building activity in there too, maybe?
Yeah, I think so too. I made a note here. I thought the training time would have been better spent with a balanced training schedule that focused on team training rather than individual training. Because I think, weightlifting and stuff like that is going to be strength and conditioning's, really an individual thing. Did you guys watch the video on the Canadian crew team?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too when you said that.
Yeah, did you see that thing like where they were like all in the gym doing those rowing machines?
Mm-hmm.
Those things are all synchronized together. So you can see, so the coach can see, like on a computer screen, who's pulling how much weight and whether they're all in sync.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm sure those, you know, that type of training was available. So I think, you know, not focusing so much on individual training things as working on the individual. So yeah, let me switch back to here. There's so many computer screens open. What action? Let's skip that one for now. So what role did trust play in the problems the varsity crew faced?
I think it played a big role with their team unity because none of them really trusted each other or the coach.
How does that lack of trust manifest itself? I mean, actually, when you're out rowing, because it's kind of obvious when, you know, afterwards you lose and you kind of blame other people. But when they're actually rowing, how do they show trust in each other?
Well, it said not to try to make up somebody rowing. When you're rowing and you feel somebody make a mistake, you need to just keep it clean with everybody else. Don't try to make up for that mistake. By trusting that if you keep going at the pace, like it'll level back out.
Yeah, that's where it says when one of the rowers makes an error, you have to, the best response was to trust that whoever made the error would correct his next stroke, allowing the boat to regain balance and maximum speed.
So that's probably pretty key, and why they were getting slower was because they weren't trusting that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some elements, you know, if you're on a team where you feel that somebody else doesn't put in as much effort as you do, then sometimes you really don't even want to make up for their lack of effort. And so you don't make as much effort. So I think that's probably involved in trust.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That if the person next to you isn't putting all of their energy into what you're doing, then why should you? Kind of thing.
What was something that maybe the coach did that messed up the trust factor in the team?
I think one thing is he let them. Well, the varsity team kept losing and losing and losing, and so they lost. I don't know. I never said how many times, but he just said consecutively that they kept losing. But you still allowed the same JV team to race the same varsity team without really correcting anything to make the varsity team faster. So maybe the varsity team just started to kind of get deflated. They're like, yeah, we're not going to beat the JV guys anyway, so why are we even going to try that hard? So they almost kind of just quit on themselves. So he needed to correct it. Maybe when they lost 3 or 4 times, then okay, now we got to figure something out so we don't let this keep happening.
Yeah, that was one of my criticisms, was he let it go way too long, because I think what they're talking about at the very end is like the night before the big match or the big rowing regatta.
Yeah.
What about switching people out, taking a JV person, putting them on the varsity, and putting the varsity down on the JV? What do you think that did to the trust for the varsity people?
They have to trust a whole new group of people instead of who they're originally usually trusting.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of practice going on. Everybody is, I mean, he keeps switching it up, so you can't get used to the rowing style or like used to the person. So I think it's kind of messing with them. It also shows that the coach doesn't trust them that if they practice together enough that they'll be able to sink.
I think
It
that's
almost
interesting.
feels like he's panicking.
Oh, that's interesting. I never really thought of it that way, about how it's showing that the coach isn't really trusting the players. He's going to switch around individual boat members.
Yeah,
And the
that's
player, like, does he really think I'm worth it, or can I not do it? That's interesting. Yeah, out of those options, like, he had the option to switch the varsity and junior varsity boats, to switch individual boat members, or to just intervene and help the varsity boats' performance. I think switching individual boat members would be the worst option out of all of those three.
all right. So question 3 is, how did the rivalry between the varsity and the JV influence the varsity's performance? Would the varsity have faster times if they had practiced alone?
I think they would, just because like this team rowing is, it doesn't, I guess it kind of proved that you don't have to be like the strongest to be the fastest. It's more of a team unity, gets you that speed. So I think that if they were competing against themselves, kind of, they would have been overall faster in the end. If they would have been trying to improve their time, improve their time instead of just focusing on beating the JV.
Which I would agree with that, because it's pretty bad when you lose to the JV. It's pretty disheartening on the varsity. When I played basketball, the JV when I was on the JV, we'd beat the varsity, and they would get ticked, and they would start falling apart, and then we'd all get in trouble because the JV was beating the varsity. So I think it's important, like, yeah, let them go practice on their own, let them improve their time, see that they can do it and build trust, and then go and compete with JV to show that they're improving. I think the reason why the JV was doing so well against the varsity is because their will to beat the varsity. I mean, if they beat the varsity, they look that much better. If they don't, I mean, it's normal. It's okay because of JV. So.
On the other hand, I'm kind of thinking that's kind of assuming that really the varsity's big problem is morale because they were losing. If their primary problem was team unity and being able to get together, that probably wouldn't change whether they were racing the JV or going alone. I think they would still have those trust issues, the not working well together types of things. So I guess I'm kind of questioning how much of a factor the competition or being beat a lot really played into it. I think my thought was, and somebody kind of mentioned focus, and I just used the word priority. I think maybe their priority or the coach's priority would have been first to get them working together as a team, and then second, work on their strength, their speed, and winning. So, and I think he either just assumed they'd be able to, work together as a team, or just didn't recognize that was a big problem. Okay, here's a good question. should the coach have stepped in to provide better leadership himself, or should he have encouraged one of the team members to provide leadership?
I think we were talking about the coxswain earlier, and kind of how their responsibility is to be kind of that team leader and to help make sure things run smoothly on the water, and that the team's starting to bond and work together as a team. So I think he should have delegated things to them first, and maybe worked on coaching the coxswain on what he needed to do better before he ever stepped in.
Yeah, I think a good example of that is, with kids. I had 4 kids. Well, I have 4 kids still. I didn't get rid of any yet. I mean, they're some out of the house, but it's like if a parent asks them, says, okay, hey, Saturday, let's clean the house and then we'll do something fun. If it's coming from a parent, it's one thing, but if like an older sibling or one of the siblings says, hey man, it'd be really fun to do this, or hey, let's do this for mom, let's clean up the kitchen for her. See, it almost seems like the siblings are more likely to go along with that other sibling and do something for mom versus dad saying, hey, how about if you guys clean the kitchen for mom or something like that. I think it's that peer leadership versus authority leadership.
Yeah.
All right. How about if everybody goes around and says what the coach should do on Tuesday and why? Don't everybody jump in at once.
All right.
Maybe more team building exercises, like mixing of the teams for the game, and then afterwards let them know who's riding in which boat. Maybe don't create varsity or junior varsity right away until they're more unified together, and then you can split them up and then have them practice every day, maybe in different spots of the boat, so you can get used to rowing with different team members.
Yeah, I like that. I was thinking just kind of maybe.
But we're talking like this is 4 days away, the national championship. What do you think you can do in 4 days?
I think that maybe he could just spend one day and not even go rowing. Just do something as a team that would help build their trust. I don't know what that would be, but maybe some kind of activity that doesn't have to do with
trust falls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think some kind of team building exercise, just spend a day off the water, or at least very little time on the water, where, okay, we got to figure this out as a team so we can work better together, and then maybe give them, and then also like at the bottom, it kind of gives each person specific assignment, kind of what they're supposed to be doing, whether depending on what seat you're sitting in the boat, and then, okay, hey, you're sitting in this spot, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So, okay, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and I need to make sure that I get this done.
Yeah, I don't think that they should switch up the teams. I think that the varsity needs to definitely do some team building exercises and take a day off and do those. I remember I did IDC, and we were getting to a point where we were starting to be disunified, and we took a day to just do stuff together to kind of bond back with each other, and it helped out a lot. So I think spending a day doing that, and then since it's for nationals, I say stick with your varsity, show that you trust them, let them do trials on their own, and don't pair them with the JV, and let them build up their spirits and beat their own times, and build confidence for nationals.
I thought that was interesting in the movie or the video about the Canadian row team that they only compete in events 3 times a year. And so it was like all preparing for those 3 events. That was it. I don't know, just added that in.
All right. Did everybody feel they got their 2 cents in about that?
Yep.
Okay. So you guys want to know what really happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what happened. I'll just read this. Coach P, coach of the Army crew at West Point, a few years ago faced a baffling problem. Through extensive testing, he had developed objective criteria to rank his rowers. He then put the eight best, his dream team, in the varsity boat and the 8 others in the junior varsity boat. The problem, the JV beat the varsity 2/3 of the time. The situation was that the varsity was full of resentment over who was contributing most, while the JV, feeling they had nothing to lose, supported one another happily. So here's what he did right before the national championships. He lined up the varsity crew in 4 pairs. He told them they were to wrestle, no punching, for 90 seconds. There were no clear winners. Each man was discovering that his opponent was just as strong and determined as he was. Coach P then had them change opponents and wrestle again. By the 3rd round, they were choosing their own opponents. One guy would point at another and say, "You." Coach P says, finally, one of the rowers started laughing and they all piled into a general brawl. Eventually, someone said, "Coach, can we go row now?" From then on, the varsity boat flew. You probably can't order members of an executive team to wrestle, tempting though it may be, but bringing tensions out into the open and then resolving them is one of the team leader's most important jobs. So what do you guys think of what he ended up doing?
I think it's a little unorthodox, but I like it. I mean, it works for them, and it's definitely unorthodox.
Yeah, I think that only works with a guys team. I feel like that would not work if it was all girls.
It sounds like more of like a middle school kind of mentality. Like, hey, Gabe, just fight it out.
Yeah. I had that, not that thought, but I kind of was thinking about how they should just have a discussion about all of their problems earlier. But I thought that was something that they should do, but I think that's a good idea what he did at the time.
Wonder if that'll be like a long-term fix though, or whether that's just gonna fix it for maybe a day or 2 and then they'll be back to the same way.
Well, it seemed to work well for that, and I think maybe it's just, it's kind of like hitting a reset button. It's changing a mindset, and again, sometimes you may have to try a few different things. You may have to do some things that are a little unorthodox when it comes to working with teams and team dynamics. But it's not always, just something really big, and it takes a really long time to fix. Have you guys read the book The Speed of Trust or heard about it? I think the instructor might have mentioned it in last week's hangout that he did. But one of the things that people mistakenly think about trust is that it takes a long time to gain. And Stephen Covey, who's the son of Stephen R. Covey, he did a lot of studies, and it showed that when you give trust, you can build trust really fast, faster than most people think, because mainly trust is feeling that somebody else's motivations are pure. And so when you give them the benefit of the doubt that they have your best interest at heart, you can almost instantly have trust with that person. And I think this was kind of shown by what Coach P did in that throughout the whole season, a really long time, comparatively speaking, the team members didn't trust each other or trust each other that each other had pure intentions. But when they actually were able to feel, hey, this guy's just as strong as me, and this other guy's just as strong as me, you're able to say, hey, okay, when he's pulling on that oar, he probably is pulling, as hard as he can and doing it just as much in sync as he can. And I think that, did change just after a few minutes with the team. So I think trusting people is something one of the points of the speed of trust is trust needs to be given more freely, because for the most part, people will have good intentions. Most people aren't out there to take advantage and be untrustworthy, I guess. So the last question is, what can we learn from what Coach P did and the experience in this case to help us in a business setting or an HR setting or really any type of team setting? What do we learn from this?
I would say team unity is built, not given, because most people that when you get into the real world or whatever and you have an actual job, you're rarely working by yourself. You're most likely going to be working with other people, so you need to continually build team unity instead of just expecting it to just happen.
I would say also with that, you are working with these people every day, and if you offend or if there's just something bad that comes up where you and the coworker aren't getting along, it make the workplace really difficult. And sometimes we have to come up with ways to make friends, to bond, because if you don't, we're not going to work well as a team. Business is all about teamwork.
Yeah, that's good. And life is better when things are working together, working smoothly.
Plus, also, I think your team's going to change a lot in the business environment. Like, you're not always going to have, okay, this is our team for the next 5 years. It's going to change. There'll be people that leave the team, some new people that join the team. So I think it's really important to involve these new people that come in and start working with you, to really involve them and to become a team as quick as you can, because then you'll start being more effective as soon as that happens.
Yeah. I just thinking maybe on like a personal level, just to be humble, and to realize that the person next to you is trying like his best, giving all his strength that he has maybe. And so just to have that trust, like we said, team unity is very important. And so to be able to trust your teammates for the overall health of the project or whatever you're working on may be more important than whatever you feel is important, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Feedback and wrap up. Rate the overall quality of today's discussion from 0 to 10.
I would give us 8.5. Just because I don't know what to do it off of.
I'd say 9, I guess. Just I thought we did pretty good.
Yeah, I go with Jerem, like 8.5, somewhere in there. He was really good. We covered everything. I think we talked a lot about what they need to get done, what they did good, what they could improve on. So.
All right. And let's see, Lexi, what do you think?
I would give us a 9.
All right. Who hasn't? Tanner, did you rate us?
Yeah, I was 8.5.
8.5. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think a solid 9 is good. I'm supposed to ask what I did as a discussion leader that you liked.
I liked that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just said I thought you kept the discussion going. Like as soon as we answered one question, you just moved us on to the next question and kept us going.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Cool.
And that you were prepared to. I like that. That was good.
I liked that you brought in a book that we don't have to actually read, but kind of brought in outsider knowledge that none of us knew about.
Yeah, you did really good.
Okay. What could I do better next time?
I can't think of anything. I think you did good.
Funny videos.
Yeah, I can't think of anything really either yet.
Are we all filling this out online, or is this just?
No, what it is each week the discussion leader, there's a section that you're supposed to, I think what everybody was supposed to do was kind of answer the questions. It says in preparation for the group discussion, ponder the following questions so you can better contribute to the discussion, and it had like 4 questions there.
Yeah.
So the group people do that. The team leader or group leader has the discussion prep, and there's a lot more questions, and it just kind of goes through what you should cover and about how many minutes it should take to cover it. And then it looks like, let me switch over to the content here. So then the discussion leader
The feedback and final wrap up.
Yeah, so then the discussion leader does it's an individual writing assignment for the discussion leader, not a group assignment. If you're the discussion leader, do the following. Think of a team or group you've been part of that had some problems. Could be a sports team, school project, work group, church council. Think about what you learned from the Army case. Write a paragraph or 2 explaining the following, and then there's like three questions there. So the group leader does that each week. Anybody want to volunteer for group leader next week?
I can do it.
Okay. I don't see anywhere where we have to write it down. You just have to, submit it when you're the group leader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now on his lesson 3 overview, it said this week you need to discuss content in your group's weekly group hangout on air. You should be having discussions both about the Army crew team and the doohickeys assignment. Your group leader and only your group leader will submit a summary of your meeting. Okay, so I'll do that. I looked at the sample assignment. It says your first doohickeys paper is due end of week 5. Should be between 3,500 and 5,000 words, about 7 to 10 pages, no less than 3,500 words, well organized like the sample paper, have all sections like the sample, including an introduction, conclusion, and bibliography. You should definitely use outside sources, not just your assigned readings. Use APA or MLA format. Use any topics from the previous week to start solving your problem. For example, first paper due week 5, use contents from week 1 through 5, teamwork, performance, management, diversity, equal opportunity, equal employment law, and harassment. Our second paper is due at the end of week 8, so you will use contact from weeks 8. So it looks like maybe we're just doing 2 papers. For some reason I thought there was one like week 10, 11, and 13 or something, but
On the one I have pulled up, it's I guess just the instructions for the doohickeys problem. For this one, it says there'll be one at 5, 8, 11, and 14.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too.
Because I mean, it's kind of nice because there's no tests, but just the papers.
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of suggests, and I've done this in other classes where you kind of split it up to where each person does a section or addresses a question, and then one person's like the editor and you know, kind of pulls it all together. So if you want to do something like that, I'm up for that.
I'd be up for that too. Section, problem 1, 2, 3, and a conclusion. If each of us wanted to either take an introduction, problem, or conclusion, I think 5 of us could do it, and then we could all look over it.
Okay.
Yeah, are we just gonna work on it on this Google Doc
Yeah,
as we go? Okay.
we can do that.
Yeah. I was thinking that'd probably be the easiest because then you can go in whenever you want during the week and say, like, so if I do problem 1, then I can just start today and start working on problem 1 and come up with solutions and then just knock it out.
Okay. Is somebody good at setting up Google Docs?
Yeah, so I actually sent one, and it should be in your Gmail mode.
Okay. Oh, in my Gmail.
Yeah, if you go look in there, there should be a link that'll take you to that Google Doc.
All right.
But yeah, so I set it up, and I kind of made the outline for it of what's supposed to be in there.
We need to talk about what are the problems because the 3 problems, I think 1 is definitely a sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Or discrimination with like hiring, firing, and also going up to like who gets called to be a manager. What else?
Are we just supposed to, where do we pick these problems from?
I saw them somewhere.
It's from there's a where the doohickey, where it talks about it, there's questions. Underneath all those questions, there's a rubric and then like a case you gotta read.
Yeah.
Up at the top, it says click here to view the doohickeys problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that opens it up. Well, yeah, there we go, the case. It doesn't, I don't think it identifies the problems. I think you have to pull those out of that case.
Which, I mean, we only have to come up with 3 problems, and I think there's way more than that in the company that you can choose from. So,
Yeah.
I went and I read through it and I answered those questions. The big one I picked out was sexual harassment, discrimination, and mistreatment of lower level employees. But you're probably, I mean, there's more specific ones probably that you can focus on. Those are more general that would give us a lot to talk on.
yeah. I'm good with those ones.
Yeah, those would be good.
Yeah, the same one stuck out to me.
Okay, so should I Let me just type those into the Word doc real quick.
Okay.
You don't think they have to be in order, right?
I said all one was problem one had to be the most important one that we're going to focus on.
Once we do these, we can switch them around in the paper. And so maybe what we can do is, once you get the problems up there, it says brainstorm at least 4 solutions for each one, write a paragraph describing each. So maybe before we get too heavy into writing paragraphs, we can kind of throw those onto the paper, and then I mean, we can put more than 4, and then we can maybe just at next week's hangout, we can just kind of narrow it down to the 4 we think, and then decide who's going to write the paragraph for each of them and the solutions. So you need a paragraph for each solution and a paragraph describing the problem.
Okay.
I haven't really read the case yet, so I don't really know what is all going on.
It's a pretty easy read, and like when I went through it, I highlighted everything that I was reading in the case, and like there is so much that is going on that's bad that I'm sure we'll have plenty of content to talk about. I think it's going to be narrowing down what we want to talk about.
So are we not working on that this week?
I think,
well, Norman was talking about listing the solutions. So if we wanted to, like, we could go through and Jeremy could go through and read it. And throughout the week, we can just throw up what we think would be solutions to each of those problems.
Okay.
And by the time we meet next week, maybe that's when we'll decide and kind of start working on actually writing it out.
Yeah, that'd be great. I like that idea.
So, yeah, for now, just the rest of the week, just go back through it and kind of start writing. Just throw your solutions on the Google Doc, I guess.
And kind of just, I'm going to get myself really familiar with the rubric and these 4 points here. What are the HR issues? Choose 3 for each of the 3. In light of all the problems and solutions, explain what is the most important thing to focus on. Describe why you think this is key. Describe pros and cons. So, yeah, I'm just going to try to get into this and see what exactly they want.
Okay.
Did anybody see the worksheet from the Harvard Mentor contact info for team members worksheet? Submit this to your first virtual team leader by midnight Saturday. Did anybody see that?
What is it?
It's on the doohickeys problem instructions, first virtual team assignment. Fill out the worksheet from the Harvard Mentor contact info for team members worksheet. I didn't see that worksheet.
I didn't see it either.
I'll put a question in on the discussion board about that. And then I'll post something on the email if we need to fill that out.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, is there anything else?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay, and Norman, you're gonna submit the link to this video in our emails, right?
Yep. And I'll share it on the
Google Plus.
class community. All right, we'll go ahead and stop the recording and we'll see you guys